Millionaire CEO saw a woman fired for helping his autistic daughter. He walked up and said. The grand lobby of the Kingsley Corporation shimmered with marble floors and the soft echo of heels clicking in rhythm. Employees whispered nervously as the CEO, Alexander Kingsley, strode through the hall. Known as a cold, calculating businessman, his icy demeanor was legendary. But beneath the perfect suits and measured tone hid a secret pain. The loneliness of his only daughter, Emma, a bright 6-year-old with autism. Alexander had tried everything. Doctors, specialists, therapists, but nothing worked. His daughter barely spoke, barely smiled, and avoided human touch. Every night, he came home late to find her sitting in silence, tracing stars on her windowpane. That silence killed him slowly. One ordinary morning, the company daycare reported an incident. Emma, who rarely attended public settings, had a meltdown after another child took her stuffed bear. The staff panicked, but one woman, Leela Brooks, a new junior staff member from housekeeping, stepped in. She didn't shout. She didn't panic. She simply sat on the floor beside Emma, humming softly, her eyes calm, her voice gentle as rain. She handed Emma a crayon and said, "Draw it. Show me how you feel." For the first time in months, Emma looked up. She didn't speak, but she started to draw, a picture of the bear, the stars, and her father. By the time Alexander arrived in his black car, Emma was sitting peacefully beside Leela, clutching the crayon, her tears gone. He froze in the doorway, unable to process what he was seeing. His daughter, his silent little girl, was smiling. He didn't interrupt. He just watched from the glass door as Leela spoke softly, her patience infinite. For the first time, Emma whispered something, barely audible but real. She said, "Star." Leela smiled. "That's right, sweetheart. A star." Alexander's chest tightened. He almost stepped in to thank her, but before he could, the daycare manager stormed over. "Leela Brooks," she snapped. "What do you think you're doing? You're not authorized to handle special cases. You're a cleaner, not a therapist." Leela stood up nervously. She was scared. "I just wanted to help." The manager crossed her arms. "That's not your job. You could have caused trouble if she'd reacted badly. Pack your things. You're fired." Emma's eyes widened. She gripped Leela's sleeve tightly, refusing to let go. Leela knelt again, brushing Emma's hair gently. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered. "Be brave for me, okay?" Emma shook her head, tears welling up again. The manager pulled Leela away. The other staff looked on in silence. Alexander stood frozen, fury and guilt twisted inside him. He wanted to shout, to stop the injustice, but years of running a billion-dollar company had taught him to observe first. He watched Leela walk out of the building, holding her small bag, her eyes red. Emma cried silently for hours afterward, refusing to eat or move. That evening, Alexander sat by Emma's bedside. "Star," she whispered again. "Leela." He froze. It was the first time she'd said anyone's name besides his. Something broke inside him. The next morning, he called for his assistant. "Find that woman," he ordered. Now, it took hours, but by late afternoon, his assistant returned with an address, a tiny one-room apartment on the poor side of town. He went himself. No chauffeur, no guards, just him. When he knocked, Leela opened the door, surprised and embarrassed to see him there. "Mr. Kingsley," she gasped. He stepped in quietly, looking around at the modest space, the scent of coffee, the few children's drawings on the wall. "You helped my daughter today," he said softly. "And they fired you for it." Leela hesitated. "It's all right. I understand rules. I just couldn't watch her suffer." Alexander looked at her for a long moment. "Do you know what she said last night?" he asked. Leela shook her head. "She said your name." Leela's eyes filled with tears. "She spoke." He nodded. "First time in 6 months." He took a deep breath. "Miss Brooks, I made a mistake letting people like that run my company. You have something they don't, heart." And my daughter needs that more than anything. But before he could offer her anything, Leela interrupted. Mr. Kingsley, with all due respect, your daughter doesn't need me. She needs you. I saw how she drew you beside the stars. She misses you. She doesn't need a millionaire. She just needs her dad. The words hit him like lightning. For a man who built empires, those simple words shattered his armor. Maybe, he said quietly. But she also needs someone who understands her world. He took out a card and handed it to her. Come back, not as a cleaner, as Emma's personal caretaker. Name your salary. Leela looked at the card, then back at him. I'll come back, she said softly, but only if you promise something. He raised an eyebrow. What? Promise you'll take time to actually be with her. No meetings, no phones, just be her dad. He stared at her, then nodded slowly. Deal. That evening, when Emma saw Leela again, she ran into her arms without hesitation. The house, once filled with cold silence, began to echo with soft laughter, crayons rolling on marble floors, and stories whispered under warm light. For the first time in years, Alexander felt alive. But little did he know, someone at the company resented the change, and planned to destroy both Leela and his fragile happiness. Weeks turned into months, and everything began to change. Emma spoke more words. She smiled. She laughed, her laughter like music echoing through the Kingsley mansion. The staff, once stiff and quiet, found themselves smiling too. Even Alexander's face softened. He left work early, started cooking pancakes with Leela and Emma on weekends, and learned to listen instead of command. He was rediscovering what love meant. But success breeds envy. Inside the Kingsley Corporation, not everyone was pleased. Martha Grayson, the same daycare manager who'd fired Leela, watched with bitterness as Alexander praised the young woman publicly. Leela's ideas for inclusive spaces for children with disabilities began spreading across company programs. Emma was the heart of the new initiative. Investors loved it, employees admired it, but Martha hated it. She's manipulating him, she hissed to another manager. A poor woman pretending to be a savior. Jealousy soon turned into scheming. One rainy afternoon, Alexander was out of town for a business meeting, leaving Emma and Leela at the company daycare. Everything was fine until Martha entered, her eyes cold. Well, she sneered. Back where you started, huh? Leela ignored her, helping Emma stack colored blocks. Please don't do this, Martha, she said softly. Emma's happy. Let's just let her be. Martha smirked. You think you can replace people like me? You think you belong in his world? You're nothing but charity. Suddenly, she grabbed Emma's toy to provoke her. Emma screamed, terrified. Leela instantly moved between them. Give it back, she said firmly. But Martha pushed her, and Leela fell, hitting the edge of the table. Emma burst into tears, clutching her ears. Staff rushed in, chaos erupted, and of course, security cameras caught everything. When Alexander returned that evening, he was furious, not at Leela, but at himself. His assistant had already shown him the footage. Without a word, he stormed into the building, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Employees froze. Martha paled as he entered the daycare. His face was calm. Too calm. Miss Grayson, he said in a low voice. You're fired. Effective immediately. She started to protest, but he raised a hand. You didn't just hurt an employee. You terrified my daughter. Get out before I call the police. Then he turned to Leela, who sat holding ice to her head. Emma clung to her, crying softly. Alexander knelt beside them, his eyes filled with something no one at the company had ever seen, tenderness. You protected her, he said quietly, even when I wasn't here. Leela smiled faintly. I just did what anyone with a heart would do. He shook his head. No, you did what I was too blind to see. Love doesn't need permission. He stood up, looked at his staff, and said, from this day forward, every employee who helps, protects, or uplifts another person, no matter their title, will be honored, not punished. Kindness is not a weakness. It's strength. The room erupted in applause. Weeks later, the company's new initiative launched, the Star Foundation, named after Emma's first spoken word. It funded therapy centers for children with autism and support for struggling families. Leela became its director, leading with compassion and courage. Emma thrived, drawing stars everywhere, on walls, papers, even her dad's office window. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, Alexander stood on the balcony with Leela beside him. "You changed everything," he said softly. Leela smiled. "No, you did. You just needed a reason to remember what really matters." He looked at her, eyes warm. "Then I owe you and my daughter everything." Below them, the city glowed like 1,000 stars. Emma ran out holding a drawing, a picture of all three of them, smiling beneath a sky full of stars. "Family," she whispered. Alexander's eyes filled with tears. He lifted her into his arms, looking at Leela. "You gave me back my daughter, and my heart." And as the screen faded to black, his words echoed softly. "Sometimes the richest man is the one who learns to love again." If you loved this heart-touching story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories that remind us, kindness changes everything. Sparkling Heart Sparkles.